Hello, Worldview listeners. I want to take a moment and give a shout out to my friend Luke and his team at increasecreative.co. This season of our podcast, Luke has been helping his team there to produce the content that I hope that's been a blessing and encouragement to you. It's been a help to me to have his behind the scenes work, and I want to give him a shout out and let you guys know about his company. Increasecreative.co is a great partner for you to consider for powerful church communication. Luke's team can create custom websites, compelling graphic designs. They help with original video and, as you've noticed, original podcast content. It allows people like you, people like me, to connect with our communities. So I'd encourage you to let them handle the creative aspect of what you need help with so you can focus on your mission. Take a moment, visit increasecreative.co to learn more about how Luke can help you. That's increasecreative.co.
Welcome to Worldview, a podcast featuring teaching and conversations with Dr. Mike Lester that focus on helping faithful disciples develop a biblical worldview. Thanks for joining us, and here's your host, Mike Lester.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode here with Worldview with J. Michael Lester. I am excited about today's episode because today we're talking about how we communicate pathways, not promises. During this season of the podcast, we have been working through this idea of how do we lead when the path isn't clear? And that can mean leading our families. It can be leading departments, leading churches or organizations or ministries. The principles are the same, and I've asked you over the season to make the principles apply to your specific circumstances, because here's what I know as leaders. There's always this moment when we feel overwhelmed, stuck, overwhelmed with the circumstances, overwhelmed by the ask, overwhelmed by the feeling of hopelessness or uncertainty or whatever it is we're sensing, fear, whatever. And there's this desire to lead God's people forward or to lead our family forward, but it just doesn't seem like a clear path. And we've been taking the time during this season to sort of analyze this process through three different phases of this leadership process. And so if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, I would challenge you to go back and listen and get caught up. I would also say that if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, I sure would appreciate it if you would. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd share these episodes with people in your sphere of network, maybe people that you're working with or people that help you in your leadership journey, to just sort of pass it along as a resource as we work together to encourage God's people who are leading, because we know that the harvest is great and we know laborers are few, and we know that oftentimes that can give us as leaders a sense of, man, I don't know how to get this done. So share it with somebody. Let's take this journey together. So today I invite you to pull up a chair and let's pick up where we have left off. We have talked about already in the first phase of this journey to just taking time to legitimately, realistically, non-emotionally understand the difficulty we're facing. Let's assess the situation. That was step one. Let's take a good look. Let's understand the big picture. That was step two. And then let's identify the major fear, that which is paralyzing our movement, which is hindering us, which is the obstacle, which is causing us trepidation about moving forward because we're uncertain and fearful. So identifying that fear. And this sort of was that first leg of the journey. Moving into the second phase, after we tried to get our mind around the difficulties, stage two was decide the next step. I may not be able to get from here to my destination in one step. That's fair. What's the next step? What can I do now? And so we're going to just process that in this leg of the journey. We said step four in this process was finding, assembling, gathering together a support team of godly people who have the ability to tell you no, to be honest with you, and that these are multifaceted and diverse groups of people. Someone who may have great expertise in biblical counseling may not have great expertise in leading a $5 million budget where decisions are important. So maybe you have somebody from that background on this team as well. And the idea that there's safety in the multitude of counselors, but not all counsel is equal. Counsel isn't to be counted, it's to be weighed. And so we talked about finding the support team. Then we said step 5, walk in the light that you have. This harkens back to the promise from the psalmist. The psalmist said that the word of God, thy word, would be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. It would illuminate next steps for us. We could walk in the light we had. It may be dark up ahead. There may be curves in the road that we can't see around. It's okay. It's all right. Faith tells us that if we're following the light that we have, then the path is okay. And so we talked about walking in the light that we have. Then step 6, trust God even when you don't understand. There are times when a faith step rattles us more than others. It just seems like it doesn't make sense. It seems like it's out of left field. And so, but if we've gone through this process and we've evaluated and we've weighed our counsel and we have assembled a godly support team, we've got all of these green lights in a row, then if it's very clear that God is putting the steps in order, because the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, then even if it sort of goes against our natural inclination, take the faith step. And then step 7 was make the decision, just do it and own it. Don't hedge your bets. Don't put any half-hearted effort into it. And if it fails, like, well, I didn't really want to do that, but you guys told me I should. But make the decision and own it. This is what good leadership does. It doesn't look to blame others. It just owns the decisions that are made. Okay. So this is where we've been in the journey. So now we come into this final leg, this stage 3, this final part of the process. And this isn't making the decision. Now it's communicating it. We've wrestled with the Lord. We've sought counsel. We have tried to survey the situation. We've looked at how God has led us in the past. We have tried to ascertain the light in front of us and what forward looks like. And we go through all these steps. But now it's time to share it with the team or the family or the organization or the church or the leadership structure. It's time to share it with them, get them on board, and take this journey together. And sometimes this is the crucial moment where leaders miss it. We have spent this time with the Lord. We have gotten the counsel we needed. And now we come down from the mountain of wrestling with God and saying, okay, people, follow me. We haven't given them time to wrestle with the circumstances and to wonder, what has God done in your heart? And where are we going? It's not, give me drop some breadcrumbs along the way, so to speak. And so today, as we come into this first part of stage 3, here's the step. Communicate a pathway, not a promise. Here's why this is so important. Over-promising may win you the applause at the moment, but under-delivering can lose trust for a lifetime. I'm going to harken back to an illustration from history. I often do this in these episodes because these are not new principles that we're inventing in this podcast. These are timeless principles, and we see them played out not just in ministry context, but in military context and historical events. And so this one is May 13th, 1940. A good time away, huh? Europe is collapsing. Poland, Norway, they've fallen. Netherlands, Belgium, Hitler is crushing them relentlessly as he advances. France, once thought impregnable, is now buckling. London, a nation holds its breath because a new, untested prime minister steps into the office. Winston Churchill. Now we know the name today. But whatever comes to your mind when you hear that name now is not what came to the people's minds on May 13th, 1940. When we hear him from our modern day perspective, knowing the end of the story, we have pictures of resolve, resiliency, indomitable spirit. His strategy, his philosophy, they're studied by some of the world's greatest leaders today. But in 1940, there are no visions of future grandeur. He has inherited a government and a crisis of epic and historic proportions. The people are frightened, they're weary, they're desperate for reassurance. Just tell me it's going to be okay. For many in England, they're just hoping this new leader is going to promise peace and stability and maybe even a glimmer of imminent victory. Rally the troops. Churchill promised none of these. He did not give a promise. 3 days into his premiership, he rises to address the House of Commons. It's his very first time to approach that situation. So the very first address, he's setting precedents. Around him, there's men who question his judgment. There are men who doubt his temperament. There are men whispering that Britain's future has already been sealed. They are doomed for destruction. Outside, you hear the air raids wailing across all of London. There's a shadow of Nazi domination looming over the small island like a impending apocalyptic storm. Doom and gloom are filling the air. This should be the moment for soothing words. If Churchill had been a lesser leader. Instead, he offered the nation a single pathway forward. Honest, bracing, unvarnished. Here's what he said. I have nothing to offer. Blood, oil, tears, and sweat. No promise of a quick war. No assurances of an easy triumph. No illusion that things would get better before they got worse. He just offered them a path. Fight on. Stand firm. Resist evil. Do the next hard thing with courage. He couldn't promise victory. All he could do was promise the way of sacrifice, perseverance, and unwavering resolve. The nation listened. They didn't cheer. They absorbed. And when the speech was over, something remarkable happened. Churchill had given Britain not certainty, but clarity. Not comfort, but conviction. Not a guarantee, but direction. Not a promise, but a pathway. And that was enough. In moments of crisis, wise leaders know that promising outcomes, that's foolish. But providing clear, honest pathways, how to go forward, that's essential. The people in Churchill's day didn't need predictions. They needed purpose. And Churchill gave them that. And he gives us as current modern day leaders a pattern, a model to follow. There are times, as I've mentioned throughout this season, where leaders feel paralyzed, stuck, facing overwhelming and uncertain circumstances, and it seems like the path just isn't clear in front of us. And the people who are following us, who expect us to know the way and to show the way, they're waiting with great anticipation and anxiousness. Because when we're unsettled and unsure, there's a trickle effect to that, to those we lead. And we're spending time with the Lord. We're spending time with counselors. We're gaining perspective and purpose, and we're seeing the path unfold. We're seeing the next steps. That's great for us as leaders, but we can't forget about the followers. But at this crucial moment, it's important to remember that the team that we're called to lead, They don't have the advantage of the process that you and I have gone through to gain clarity in these uncertain times. So how we approach them as we take this next step is important. They don't need a pep rally. They don't need cliches. Our world is done with cliches. They don't need a remember, let's do one for the Gipper type of speech. I'll tell you what will inspire them. The conviction of a leader who has spent time with God and can offer a path forward. He doesn't predict where it ends. He just can give with conviction. I don't know where this, I hope it ends here. I can't promise that. But what I can say with certainty, conviction, and assurance, this is the path. And wherever it leads, we're going to be on God's path. I think we probably have all heard presumption masked as faith, where a leader stands up and says something audacious, and people begin to cheer. And it's like, if we rally together, we will build this new auditorium in 3 months. It'll be record time. God has shown us if we would just, here comes the passage from Nehemiah, if we would just rise up and build, if we would be a people who had a mind to work, then God has already cleared the path in front of us. He's just waiting for us to step into his work. All this has that spiritual sounding overtones. But notice what the leader is doing. He's making promises. Not giving a path. He's making promises. So what happens? The first permit is denied because there's some underground excavation that needs to be done, and that's another $1 million, and that delays the project by 3 months. And we can't get the electrician that we wanted because now there's a lot of construction going on, but we're next in line, but it's just delayed us by 2 months. And we've got to have this appearance at the city council meeting because they're wanting us to build more parking spaces. It wasn't part of the project. We're going to pause something right now until we can get clarity here. And finally it's resolved, and you make compromises, whatever, but now you're delayed another 6 months. Along the way, your promises that you made in the name of God are being undermined. And so now the people are wondering, did you misunderstand God? Did God change his mind? Did these quote unquote unforeseen circumstances, were they unforeseen to God? How much better would it be for the people that we're leading if we instead offered a path instead of speaking presumptuously for God and making promises in his name? And I know it's a fine line. I know there's a balancing act here, and I can't draw the line for you. But what I hope resonates from this episode is the course of wisdom. It's wise to say, look, I don't know what's around the next corners. I don't know. Here's the exciting part, though. God does. And what I do know is that he has set us on this path, and we're going to take this journey together wherever it lives. I don't know how long the road is. But here's what I do know. God is going to meet us at every step along the way. We're going to enjoy the journey. Do you see the difference? And so it's possible to guide people without guaranteeing an outcome. We can offer clarity. We can offer honesty. We can offer a path and hope. But despite our best plans, we can't control every outcome. And that principle applies to so much more than just leadership. When someone faces tough news, often we want to offer encouragement that's going to all work out. Yet, this is a message of hope, really, more than it is a promised prediction. A lady comes home and she's distraught, and you see her at church, and she shares with you that her husband's just being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Now, there's a need for empathy. There's a need for bearing one another's burdens, but it would be very presumptuous to say, you know what, I'm just trusting that God is going to heal your husband. Sometimes you would hear people say this terminology, God has told me to tell you. That's making a promise rather than saying, I know God has your best interest in mind. I know God has a way of working these things for your good. And I know he has a way of working for his glory. I don't know what it's going to look like. I want you to know, though, you don't have to take this journey alone. Do you see that there's just a difference here? We're on a path. I can't promise the outcome. The desire to promise success is probably woven into every leader's heart. We want to assure and reassure people quickly. We've been tasked with leading them. I get it. I really understand. We've hesitated. We've struggled to take this next step. And so now it's just natural for us to want to calm anxious hearts who've been waiting for us as we've tried to get clarity to go forward. But that tendency of trying to calm their anxious hearts, we should be honest, it's not altogether altruistic. There's a residual benefit back to us that we either consciously or subconsciously are trying to make sure it happens. We want people to view us as confident and capable. We don't want our competency to be in question. And sometimes we might even fear that raw honesty would demoralize the people we lead. Yet, in actuality, truth be told, our role as spiritual leaders isn't to convince everybody to trust us. Just trust me, I'm the leader. Rather, it's to point them to the one who alone is worthy of their trust. Moses doesn't sugarcoat the solution at the Red Sea. He's honest. We're going to go forward. We're going to walk right into that right there. I really don't know what God's going to do. I think I know. Somehow it's going to work out. But I just know this is the next step. He's honest. He asked them to trust Jehovah, he said, the one who's brought us out of Egypt. He's powerful enough to bring us into Canaan. We're going to trust him. We can't make the mistake of substituting our responsibility for God's sovereignty. There's just such a thin line between faith-filled optimism and presumption. Faith-filled optimism anchors itself in God's character. Presumption anchors itself in our predictions. And we need to make sure we understand the difference. If we study the lives of biblical leaders, faithful leaders, there's just what we could call a theology of faithful communication that begins to emerge from the text. God never commanded his servants to predict every facet of their deliverance. Moses doesn't promise how the Red Sea will part. Joshua doesn't promise how Jericho will fall. Nehemiah doesn't promise that there'll be no opposition. Even Paul and James phrase their terminology with "if the Lord permits," because it's God alone who governs and God alone who guarantees results. He doesn't ask us to be omniscient or omnipotent. He asks us to be obedient. We make our plans, sure, but we rest in his sovereignty. As we read through in Hebrews 11, what we call the great hall of faith, those heroes rarely knew the result of their decision. They just simply chose to walk in faith and obedience. And oftentimes, that walk in faith and obedience was demonstrated as taking the next step forward. There's some real dangers that we can place before people when we overpromise. We create unrealistic hopes, unrealistic expectations. We set people up for disappointment. We set people up for distrust. We just need to be careful as leaders. Even if our intentions seem noble, if our over-promising causes people's trust in God to weaken, then we probably should step back and reevaluate our approach. When God allegedly underdelivers on the promises we've made in his name, the problem might not be with God, it might be with our leadership. Perhaps a more subtle and sinister danger in this type of approach is that we shift the focus of the people from trusting in God's power to trusting in our words and our predictions. And that danger is compounded in an even greater way when those promises are given to manage or protect our image in front of the people. We need to always remember God has called us to shepherd his people, not ours, his people, not to manage our public image. So there's food for thought. I could go on, but the people we lead, they don't need certainty. They just need clarity. They don't need hype. They need honesty. They don't need guarantees. They just need a guide who can show them the path forward. They don't need audacious predictions. They just need the presence of a shepherd. And I think sometimes as leaders, we have forgotten what it was like to be followers. And it's sometimes a good reminder to put ourselves back in those shoes. So let me sort of wrap this discussion up today with some practical admonitions, some takeaways, just as we think about offering a path, not a promise. And some of this I've hinted at throughout the episode, but I just want to sort of hammer it home with just no doubt left in your mind. Here's some takeaways that have helped me, and I pray it helps you. As a leader, I should strive to provide clarity, not certainty. I have two primary roles in my life and my work life. Most of you would know I'm a president of a Bible college, Veritas Baptist College. We have somewhere near 500 in our active student population. We're growing. We have another 2,500 students that take classes through our auxiliary ministry, Truth Matters Institute. We call it TMI. And these are classes for free. So we're ministering to somewhere around 3,000 people, probably more, as many churches use the TMI account to show our resources to multiple people. But we really have no way of tracking that. So and then on our staff, there's probably 60, 65 people with our staff and faculty, maybe 70 that we're leading. And so we've got people that are scattered because we're online college. They're scattered everywhere. And so I can't say if we do X, God will do Y and Z. I can't speak for God. So what I try to constantly do for our leadership team, and then we have our all staff meetings, I try to constantly remind them is, here's some clarity. Here's what we see God doing. Here's what we see as our next step. Here's what we're trying to endeavor to accomplish. We pray that it leads here. We don't exactly know where the end result is. We just know that this is where we're heading. And we're just trying to provide clarity. I can't provide certainty. I'm not omniscient. I can provide clarity. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. Here's our next step. Secondly, set expectations honestly. Set expectations honestly. This step may be hard, and this step may be longer than we hoped. This step may stretch our faith, but this step will not fail and it won't fall outside of God's care. So my secondary job, I'm part-time on a pastoral team at my local church, Emmanuel Baptist Church in Newington, Connecticut. Pastor Kerry Smith. I oversee our spiritual formation and our small groups, and we're expanding our groups. Every quarter, we're starting new home groups, and we're developing new ways to connect people, and we're growing our discipleship influence, and we're just trying to connect people. I have a goal of where I would like for this to be within 3 years. How many opportunities for people to connect with others, where we can be. I don't know that I'll hit that. And so if we don't hit that goal, I'm not disappointed, because I'm just trying to set expectations honestly. Look, I'd love it so I say, this is the language, I would love it if within 3 years we hit this mark. But even if we only hit this mark, wow, look at what God will have done in those 3 years compared to where we are now. I'm just trying to manage expectations. My leadership style is I always underpromise and I try to overdeliver. I've just always been that way. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the way I'm wired. I don't know if it's because I've seen other people just say what they believe somebody expects them to say, and then they can't get it done, and now they just feel the pressure. I've just always tried to manage expectations in a way that I believe is still a step of faith. And I'm praying we'll do much more than that. But I'm just trying to set expectations and manage them honestly. Here's the third takeaway. Embrace obedience language. I can't promise an outcome, but I can demonstrate what the next biblical step we should take is, and I'm going to challenge us to be obedient in that step. It's obedience language, not outcome language. Takeaway number 4. Remind others that my confidence, your confidence, our confidence is in God. It's not my projections. It's not my spreadsheet. It's not my great keynote or PowerPoint presentation. It's not in Mike we trust. My predictions, my projections, that's not what's going to get us through this. I'm trying to follow God's plan one step at a time, and as he leads, we'll follow. So I'm trying to ground people's confidence that God's doing this. It is the Lord's doing. It's marvelous in our eyes. Number 5, communicate progress with transparency. We've taken a big step forward in God's pathway for us. We can't predict the outcome, but we can trust that he's leading us step by step. Now, transparently, I sometimes struggle here because there's this fine line for me where communicating progress that God is doing something great can almost sound like bragging, prideful, arrogant. And so I resist that because I don't want God to remove his hand of blessing. But at the same time, the people we're leading have a right to hear. They deserve to hear that God is doing great things. I probably don't share this enough, the progress that God is doing. What I see God doing at Veritas with the growth that we're experiencing right now, I should probably tell our team more about that. I try to share some. What I see with God in our groups ministry at my home church, I'm so excited about that. And I'm sharing some of it, but maybe I should share more. The point is, we want to communicate progress. We want to do it with transparency. One final takeaway. Invite people into the process. If you know me or anything about me, my style is not autocratic leader. I am not my way or the highway. I really lean into consensus. I really lean into building teams. I know responsibility. I know the flow chart. I know where the buck has to start. I get all that. And I'm not afraid to make a decision when I have to. But I love inviting people into the process. I believe that we is greater than me. Or excuse me. And also, I want the people that we're leading to know that the decision that I'm announcing wasn't made on a whim. It wasn't made on a reaction. We've gathered a team together. We've been praying about this and hashing this out and talking about it and asking for wisdom and pushing back and pulling forward. And as a team, this is our recommendation. We are certain that God is leading us in this way. There's just that a clarity that comes with the fact that this has been birthed out of a lot of counsel. Often the desire to appear confident can cause us to overpromise and then desperately hope that God makes us look good. When our predictions fail, the irony is that we lose credibility. Rather than overpromising on the outcomes, I would challenge you to provide a pathway instead. So when you feel stuck, when you're trying to lead and now you're ready to make this decision and you're sharing it with the team, today's episode is this. Here's the takeaway. Show them a path, not a promise. Pathways, not promises. And I hope that challenges you in your leadership. If this has been a help to you, I hope you'll share it with others. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode as we continue this journey together. May the Lord bless you. And until then, this has been Worldview with J. Michael Lester.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Worldview with Dr. Mike Lester. You can connect with Mike at jmichaellester.com, where you'll also find more discipleship resources. Mike also serves as the president of Veritas Baptist College, an online university dedicated to training ministry leaders virtually so that they can stay where God has called them. Learn more about Veritas at vbc.edu. This podcast is hosted by Dr. Mike Lester and produced by Luke Clayton and the team at increasecreative.co. We hope this episode has helped you grow in your journey of being a faithful disciple of Jesus. And we look forward to having you join us again right here on Worldview.